Chapter 65. Hey there. Summary. Space phone call goes through. Time for dads! Izuku goes to bed, brain mushy with the written grammar rules of basic. First thing they'd done after parting with the space pirate crew was get some basic books for kids. Izuku had to admit, the pictures were nice, and it was really helpful, but some of their group resented the kid books with a passion. What mattered, though, was that they were making progress. Being so focused on the new challenge, as he was, Izuku was caught completely off guard when he woke up in the void. He was even more caught off guard by what he saw. Firstly, what was with the vestiges in Uno? 10 people sat in a circle playing an intense game of Uno, while an 11th was sitting grumpily a little ways away. Secondly, weren't there only 8 quirk ghosts? Izuku eyed the circle goers appraisingly, before a choked gasp left him. All 11 heads present snapped towards him at the sound, but he was already barreling forward. Shota let out an oof as a small body crashed into Yagi and him. He reflexively got his hands under him, managing to stay upright, but he didn't even notice. Shota was frozen. Uno cards spilled on the floor. The trademark Midoriya tears were already spilling as his missing kid wrapped his arms around them. His kid. He was really here. It had been over a week of trying to catch Midoriya at a time when he was asleep, always seeming to miss him. It had been 5 months since he was taken, not knowing if he was okay. But now, he was here. He was safe in his arms at last. It didn't matter that, in reality, he was somewhere in the infinite expanse of space, because right now, Shota could ruffle green locks and hold Midoriya close. "My boy," Yagi chokes out. And the way the former #1 hero looks at Midoriya is the same way one would react to seeing the sun rise for the first time in years. Despite how much he doesn't want to, Shota lets go of Midoriya as the boy's focus shifts onto a fawning Yagi. Shota's hands burrow into the folds of his scarf in an attempt to preserve the warmth of his kid a little longer. "Oh my," Midoriya sniffles, leaning his head onto the man's chest. I missed you." "I missed you too," Yagi says softly, pulling Midoriya closer. "More than you'll ever know." Shota smiles into his scarf. He's so thankful his Hell class talked him into this, even if Problem Child doesn't need him. Shota didn't realize how much he needed to see Midoriya was safe with his own 2 eyes. It seems like All for One was having mixed feelings. He had crept closer, still keeping at a distance by the glares of the vestiges, watching Midoriya hug Yagi with a mix of relief and contempt. The sight only makes Shota's smile widen. After a minute of a quiet embrace, the pair separate slightly. Yagi's hands flit over the boy's form, as if checking for injuries. "Are you okay?" the blonde questions. Shota also inspects Midoriya, as the boy awkwardly assures the pro of his well-being. He's in some sort of large drapey sleep shirt, paired with a loose pair of shorts. Clearly some sort of sleepwear. His hair is longer than before, covering the nape of his neck. A little braid sticks out among sleep-ruffled strands. Shota briefly catches a glimpse of a shiny scarred skin marring his student's left shoulder blade, but Midoriya shrugs up his shirt before he can put a thought to what could have caused the scar. His appearance isn't the only thing different. Shota can also see a change in the way he holds himself. Despite being sat in Yagi's lap and the obvious comfort the man brings, an underlying sense of tension remains in his posture. Not at anything here. Shota can tell. It's the tension he sees in fellow underground heroes who have been through too much in their careers. Midoriya holds his hands up placatingly as he speaks. I promise I'm fine. I wouldn't have one for all back if I wasn't back to normal, and I'm not hurt anywhere. The boy, seemingly unconsciously, rubs his arms, bringing Shota's attention to something else he's sure wasn't there before. Winding scars wrap around both arms in a pattern that could only come from one thing. But, true to his word, they seem to be at least a few weeks old. Not the level of fadedness that would come from months of recovery, but certainly started on that journey. Yagi finally deflates at the reassurance, and much to Aizawa's surprise, Midoriya turns his attention, not to his father, but to him. The boy is once again careening into his arms, embracing Shota in a tight hug. One Shota can't help but return. Why would he hug Shota? He's just his Right. The whole class dad thing. That's still taking some time to wrap his head around. After his momentary confusion, Shota turns his focus back outwards. He hugs his kid tight, as if he could disappear at any moment, which, given the nature of the void, not to mention past experience, is a real possibility. Still, he's got a reputation to keep. He really doesn't at this point, though. His kids don't need a hard teacher to show them the harsh realities of life. They've gotten more than enough of that. So he lets out a tired huff. "You okay, problem child?" he blandly asks, not letting his emotions bleed through. The boy in question nods into his chest with a sniffle. The moment is broken by a cooing voice. "Aww." The vestige he'd learned was called First says, "You're such a mother hen." Shota fires back a glare, but he knows it won't shake the man. True to form, First just giggles. It seems First's teasing was enough to snap All for One out of whatever funk he was in, as the man steps closer. "Izuku, my son." Midoriya pulls away from Shota slightly, hands moving to fidget as he looks nervously at the supervillain. "Father?" he replies, a little stiff, but not harsh in any sense. Hesitance briefly flits in One for All's expression, so fast that Shota might have imagined it. "Don't I get a hug, too?" When Midoriya doesn't respond quickly enough, the supervillain continues. "You really scared me, getting abducted and all, which I think entitles me to a hug from my son." Lip captured between his teeth, Midoriya untangles himself from Shota and stands before All for One. The man wastes no time, scooping the boy into a crushing hug. Thanks to All for One's staggering height, Midoriya's feet don't even touch the ground. After a moment's hesitation, Midoriya returns the embrace. With Greenette's face buried in his father's suit jacket, Shota doubts the others could hear the delicate question the boy whispers. "You really didn't leave because I was quirkless?" But he hears it, and he hears the symbol of evil's response. "Of course not, baby. I love you so much, and nothing could ever change that. There's nothing you could do to get rid of me." Despite most of the tension leaving Midoriya, it appears as though it soaked into the other people around them. Every One for All holder watches their current holder hug their oldest enemy apprehensively. Shota himself isn't sure what to think. Sure, he'd known about the familial relationship for months now, but seeing it in front of him? Those observing the odd reunion startle when Midoriya pulls his head back. Despite the misty sheen to his eyes, his next words are razor sharp. "Good, because you are in so much trouble for attacking my class." Midoriya Izuku is the sunshine child of 1A, with a smile that could melt even the frozenest of hearts. In that moment, the look he gives One for All is nothing short of terrifying, like a solar storm ready to scorch the earth barren and leave nothing in its wake. And in that moment, Shota knows the infamous supervillain knows true fear. Still, All for One hadn't become the leader of Japan's dark underbelly by folding so easily.
Izuku, dear, I'm just doing my job. It's not like anyone got hurt.
The man attempts. Keyword being attempts, because Midoriya doesn't look the least bit swayed.
Okay, maybe there was some light maiming, but nothing too permanent. And if Tomura and his friends hadn't taken such an interest in your class, you wouldn't be so close to the same notoriety. That's what heroes want. Fame, right?
Midoriya's glare somehow gets more scalding, as All for One seems to be floundering a bit.
Well, if you want to compare heinous acts,
the supervillain begins, seemingly changing tactics.
You just had to go out and get one for all.
The hero in training's glare slips off to give way to an intensely serious look as he whispers, "The ultimate All Might March." The boy ignores, or doesn't notice, All for One practically choking, and continues, this time at a normal volume. "And there is no way you're going to justify hurting my friends. If you want any more hugs ever, it's going to take a lot of good behavior to get on my good side." With that, Midoriya detangles himself from a stunned All for One and walks back over towards Shota and Yagi. There's an air of tense silence in the void, and Shota's hands once again find their way back to his capture scarf. His eyes are locked on All for One, and he's not sure exactly when he stood up, but he cautiously edges in front of Midoriya. This may be his father, but he's still a 200-year-old supervillain. "Welp," First says, making his way to his feet. "This went pretty much as expected." The man approaches All for One, seemingly without worry. First pats the man's shoulder, having to reach quite far up due to the height difference. "Looks like you're in third place from the best dad rankings." Shota's eyebrows draw together.
"Third?"
"Certainly," First nods. "Now, I'm not sure which place you and Eighth are in, but my guess is tied for first." An embarrassed squeak draws Shota's attention to Midoriya, who has his face buried in his hands. "Uncle Yoshi, stop!" The boy whines. "What was it when I said your dad contacted us looking for you?" First doesn't blink when Midoriya launches himself at the man, just dodging to the side. "Oh yeah, you asked whether it was..." First's words are muffled as Midoriya successfully tackles him from behind, wrapping his legs around his torso and his hands around his mouth.
"That's enough out of you!"
But First doesn't give up so easily. For how frail he looks, Shota was certainly not expecting the effortless grace with which he flips Midoriya off his back, sending the boy rolling across the void. "You asked, and I quote, 'How did Yagi contact you? Or was it Aizawa?'" Midoriya just groans into his hands as he lies on the floor. "Why?"